I did my final exploratory surgery on Olaf. Sadly, there's really nothing more I can do with this car beyond my current capabilities. There's nothing more I could do for Olaf.
But you're Yogi. I mean, your whole slogan is, let's fix it, so fix him!
He's suffering from a catastrophic oil pressure problem that's a fatal flaw in these 2007 Audis.
Can't you just like pull his motor out and, I don't know, do some magic stuff that you do and fix it?
I'll tell you what, I'll go to Harbor Freight, I'll get an engine puller, and we'll try to fix him. I won't let my loyal subscriber down either. Let's fix it. Hey, we're back with Project Olaf. Took a half day off, kind of refreshed. It was Tequila Friday, so I basically had to take advantage of that. We got a few things that we need to do today. We got to continue ripping things out. We got to take off some more hoses and the belt. And I plan on making a lot of progress today. It's Saturday. I've got nothing else going on. And I'll be working into the evening, and then I'll take a break and spend some time with the family and then start it all up on Sunday. So we'll see. So as I mentioned, we need to remove the serpentine belt. I call it a serpentine belt. The repair manual calls it a poly V belt. So that must be a German way of describing the belt. But we're gonna loosen it from the tensioner. What they want you to do to also is to make sure that you mark the belt if you're gonna reuse it in the direction the belt is going currently. So when I put this back on, I will ensure that that's put on properly. You don't want to put it on reverse, it will break the belt. This belt, I think, has many more miles left on it, but since I'm doing an engine refresh, I might as well replace a belt. That's a low-hanging fruit, not very expensive. So let's get this tensioner loosened up and get the rest of these hoses off the intercoolers, disconnect the refrigerant pipe from the engine block, and slowly but surely, we're gonna move our way back up and get the O2 sensors off the catalytic converter, and then we'll eventually start disconnecting the cat completely. And we did this before when we replaced Olaf's bad catalytic converter with a new one. Take these bolts off, remove it from the mounting bracket, and I think we're getting close, man. I may or may not get burned by this or scolded on the YouTube community, but you know, I've been scoffing at this whole special tool business. This is hilarious. Lock the tensioner in position with locking pin, part number, blah, blah, blah. That's essentially meaning a special tool. That's hilarious. You know, I got their special tool right here, buddy. Let's take this old nail and ensure that it fits through the tensioner hole on this side, and then it's gonna lock in on this side once I move the wrench, or move this with a wrench all the way up here. And then I can lock it, wham, bam, there you go. And there's their special tool, hilarious. In fact, I'm gonna get a picture of that, insta that right there. There's a little shield on here too, so I'll keep all this together. And then we just pop it. Check, check. We're gonna unbolt the refrigerant line from the sump now. Whoop, look at that. Oh, yeah, baby. And then look. This is why you buy quality tools, man. Stuff just works. All right, well, I'm gonna remove the sensor off of the compressor. Damn, I'm trying to, there we go. Trying to do it with one hand. There we go, that's off. Now, I unscrew the compressor from the engine block, and I'm gonna zip tie it off to the side because that's not coming with me. All right, now I'm gonna move this along and get these bolts off so I can get this condenser out of the way. Right in the oil. Awesome. And that's just a pop-off hose barb. And we're done. Okay, it's coolant hose disconnection time. All right, we're disconnecting the electrical sensors for the catalytic converter. I'm very familiar where these are at. They're mounted on this bulkhead. Brown is downstream. Black is upstream. All right, sensors are down and out of the way. Simple enough. All right, this is the 17 mil. Yay. Okay. Let's see. Wow. Okay, did you see that? Got sprayed in the face. But I ordered some rubber stoppers, keep them in my inventory, I guess. But in the meantime, I found something really cool. Earplugs. I think this is going to be perfect. There. Once that expands, it will keep the fuel from coming out and do the same thing on this side. That's pretty smart. All right, check, check. We're done. So I got to remove the cowl, which is back there where the wiper arms are attached. Here and here. So I got to take wiper arms off now. The wiper arm nut is underneath this little cap here that needs to come off. Right there. See that? This passenger side wiper was a pain in the butt to get off. There's teeth down there that hold it in place. You can see them in there. They get jammed up. I used some penetrating liquid and gave it some time to come off. Some of the research that I did online, people are using 2-jaw pullers to pop these off. And I mean, I guess if you have to, but I was a little more patient, I think, and finally got it off. If the windshield wipers weren't tough enough, this effing cowl is ridiculously stuck in there. And what I've been reading on the forums, it looks like a lot of people have some unsavory words for this plastic POS. So I may break it trying to get it out, but they said to try using a heat gun on one side to soften it up a little bit, lift it up practically 90 degrees. I don't see how without snapping it. And then it's apparently attached to some kind of lip underneath the windshield. So this is glass here, folks. So I can't go putting a screwdriver in here and start trying to pry it, or I'm just gonna have to buy a new windshield, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna try to get this out with a heat gun. So I didn't break the cowl, but I broke a little panel here, and basically it's to hold this cable in place. Honestly, I didn't see how it was attached, but it looks like it goes like that. Not a big deal. It's got a part number on it, so if I have to replace it, I'll replace it. Anyway, I used the heat gun, that kind of worked, and then I just kept pushing it. So there's a couple of reasons why. There's a lip here that this thing sits on, and it's really dirty. So it had a bunch of grime and dirt in it, and it made it extremely difficult. But the heat gun helped flex the plastic more, and then I got it started on this side, and you saw in the time lapse, I walk it across. The right screw broke off and left part of itself inside. I think it's a plastic right there. See how rusty it is? So, not sure what that means, but let's take this thing off and take a look. And that is the ECU, the engine control unit. And I'm gonna have to figure out how to repair that bolt head. Oh, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of the tip sticking out, so I think I can get to it. All right, so I'm gonna remove the ECU, get it out of the way. Oh, I see what they're doing. Okay, so we'll put this here for now. So I'm gonna remove the bolts, the grounding wire, and pull this out, because this is part of this loom here that I gotta get out. Now that the whole thing is out, basically you take this off And this whole harness conduit will start disconnecting from the firewall.
We're going to tackle the power steering pump. First thing we need to do is take off these bolts that are behind this wheel here. And it's pretty easy. Just line up the hole and then stick your Allen. And this particular Allen is I believe it's a 6. We'll just set it right there. Out of the way. Power steering pump off. And there. Easy peasy.
All right, I won't be able to show this on camera while I'm doing it, but I need to remove that coolant hose down there. That goes to the heat exchanger, so I need to disconnect it because it's not coming with me. That looks like the coolant hose right there that I'm focused on. There's 2 of them back here. So that was way harder than it should have been. That damn hose was really, really stuck on there. But I got it. I had to disconnect the grounding wire. I got the 2 coolant hoses off. Now we can move on, finally.
All right, here is the ground right here that's attached to the frame here. I'm gonna disconnect that. And there's some more wiring harnesses that look like they go to the starter that I'll need to disconnect underneath there. But one thing at a time, let's get this ground off and then we'll move on to the next one. All right, next up is I got to remove that heat shield above the half shaft there. And then from there, I start removing exhaust components. So we're getting close, folks. Okay, so that's that. I will put these back where I found them. The purpose of doing this is that it's so much easier to get to the disconnect from this coupler, which then will allow me to move this flex hose out of the way. All right, there. Okay, so that's out. So now all I got to do is I got to get back up and disconnect our favorite bolt out of the entire motor, the entire car. The most, if I'm being sarcastic, the one I hate the most is up by the catalytic converter. I'll show you. All right, it's blurry, I know, but the one with the blue tape back there, that you can see is all the way down past the downstream sensor there, the one with the wire. That holds that flexible exhaust pipe in place. Taking it off is not a big deal. Putting it back on is a freaking nightmare, and I ended up using a trick that I'll share later when I put this thing back together. But so now I got to reach my arm way down there and loosen that thing off so that we can get the exhaust disconnected.
All right, so I spared you the footage on trying to get the exhaust off of the flex exhaust off of the catalytic converter. We're taking care of that. Now we got to deal with that lousy ass nut down there. You see with the blue tape, it's in a really bad position. And then, you know, the geniuses who put this together put a nut on the other side of that bolt that you have to use something to hold, because otherwise that bolt's just going to spin. So it's not just a simple matter of unscrewing that thing. I actually have to hold the nut on the end so that I can put a ratchet on that thing and loosen it up. So I'm gonna scratch myself up again. Remember, this has got to come forward first. Ooh, that almost hit me in the nose. I mean, it just brushed my nose. And then, hey, it's my socket. I forgot about this. Okay. the end of the catalytic converter on the downstream side. There's that stupid little bolt. And so we're clear on the exhaust. While I'm under here, I'm gonna make sure all the cables are disconnected, but we're getting to the point where I just gotta disconnect the starter and a few more wires and then loosen the motor mounts and then hoist it on out. I'm about to remove the first bolt on the gearbox connecting to the engine block. I must admit, I'm a little nervous. I have, never done this before, so this should be interesting. So now I just gotta figure out how to get something in there to break that bolt. Things are never quite as simple as you hope. And you run into roadblocks and you got to figure out how to get through them or get around them. And in this case, I think I have a plan, but let me back up and explain to you. There are a series of bolts, there's 11 of them, that go all the way around the bell housing in the motor. There are multiple ones on the bottom. The ones are on the bottom are 1 through 3 and 7 through 11. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3 are accessible from the bottom. The ones on the top are also difficult to get to. That one right there underneath the conduit, right where my finger's at, that's one of the many bolts that you have to loosen. So it's darn near impossible. And here's why. There are several bolts, like that one that's at a weird angle, and then these other ones here that they're forward-facing bolts. And there's really, I could probably get to it with a weird combination of tools, but they're extremely difficult to get to. And here's another one. And then there's one by the oil filter housing that's really, really difficult and at a strange angle to get to. And I keep saying, typical Audi in their design, there's just, it doesn't make any sense why they do things the way they do. And there's one here. I can't get to any of them unless I drop the subframe, which is the main reason why I didn't want to do it to begin with. So, the solution that I'm contemplating, and people online are also chiming in or have chimed in over the years about the difficulty of getting the gearbox separated from the engine block while it's still in here, is only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is when you have to mate the crank back to the torque converter while the transmission is mounted is very, very difficult as well. So I'm contemplating removing the transmission along with the engine and pull it all out in one fell swoop. Not what I wanted to do. Not even in a wildest dream did I want to pull out a transmission and an engine at the same time, but I'm going to have to. So the half shafts here need to come off on both sides, and then all the way back here from the drive shaft, that's going to be disconnected. The transmission mounts are right here. So this all could come out in one big chunk. This sucks. All right, I wanted to give you a quick update before I move on and continue taking this engine apart. If you were watching that last segment that I did, you'll notice that I discussed the issues with removing just the motor with this type of car. It is possible to take apart the bell housing from the engine block, but as you saw, quite a few of those bolts are in some pretty precarious spots where trying to break those bolts loose is just not even worth it. So I took a break. I didn't do very much work yesterday on purpose. Most importantly, I stopped because I needed to really think about my next steps. So I did some research, checked the forums, checked with some people that I trust on this subject, and pulled the repair manual on transmission removal. And honestly, it's not that much more complicated than what I'm doing now. In fact, removing the motor is way more complicated than removing the transmission. So I made a small purchase at Harbor Freight and got myself a 450-pound capacity transmission lift and low profile scissor lift style. And I plan on removing the entire transmission with the motor. And then I will bring it out, disconnect the motor from the transmission and the torque converter and roll the transmission back underneath the car and focus on the motor. I'll inspect the transmission while it's out. Why not? I mean, but I think it's gonna be fine. I may have to replace a gasket or something on the pan underneath. It looked like it was seeping. But all in all, the transmission's in good shape, I think. I got the repair manual, and it's about, as you can see, 3 pages, and some of them overlap with the repair manual on the engine. Case in point, the starter, as well as separating the transmission, and these are all the bolt indicators. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. I'm moving forward, except that when you see the video, you're gonna see a gigantic, the entire unit's coming out, not just the engine. This should be fun. Keep watching. So I'm gonna disconnect the half shafts from the transmission there and move them off to the side. I'm using my extendable ratchet, which does behave like a breaker bar. Okay. And I'm just gonna break them loose first and then come back around and take them off. All right, driver's side half shaft removed as well. Check that off the list.
It's time for Yogi's tech tip.
It's time for a Yogi's tech tip.
Here I go again, getting into the scrap bolt collection. These are what they call stretch bolts. And stretch bolts have a one-use life. They are torqued down to spec, and when you bust them loose, they can be reused, but they shouldn't be reused because, I mean, think about it. I would want fresh bolts on my drive shaft. I don't want that thing flying off while I'm driving. So these stretch bolts have a one-use life. I put them in this bag here, so I won't be tempted to reuse them, and I'll also identify what they are so that I know what bolts I need to purchase when I put the car back together. Okay, this is where I'm at. I gotta loosen these 7mm Allen bolts here, and can't really get a good angle up here without stripping it, so I gotta be careful. These things are really torqued down, and my Allen for this is a 1/4-inch socket, so I have to use a bunch of inverters to make the socket hole bigger. So I'm gonna jack the car up on the rear because 2 things. It's way cramped. I mean, listen, that's my forehead hitting the brace. That's how close I am. And I have to spin the wheels on the back to rotate this prop shaft. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's it. Okay, so the prop shaft is off. It's not off, but it's unscrewed. And I'm not sure how it's supposed to come off, but it looks like it should just pop off when the transmission's pulled. All right, so we're good. All right, so next step is to remove the drive selector lever. So when you put the car in neutral or reverse or park, this is where it happens, right here. This cable comes from the handle that you're using in the cabin to put it into drive, and it goes right into there. That black cap back there that's on that lever, and that lever with the hole in it is the one that controls it inside of the transmission. So I gotta loosen these 2 bolts, take them off, and then I gotta use a pry bar and somehow get in there and pop that cable for the lever. So here we go. All right, cable's loose. I'll snake it out of there. The transmission's going forward, so when I pull the transmission, it will slide out. So I'm not really concerned about that. All right, so here's the connector. Apologies for the lack of light, but you know, it's a very cramped area under here. And I can't stress enough, this is why I'm taking the darn engine out, because I do not want to work like this. I don't have to. I want to just unscrew that connector. It's already partially loosened before I started filming, and then just pull back. There. All right, so the connector's free. All right, I got the automatic transmission pipes out of here. They were snaked all the way from here, from this area here, underneath the transmission, all the way to the transmission housings down there by the drive shaft. So it took a little finagling to snake them out of there because they're rigid pipes, they're not flex hoses. So I got those out, so we're gonna check that off the list. The next thing is sway bar. We're gonna take the sway bar off. To show you what I did, I just took them off their post here, so I'm gonna put the nuts right back on. But there are brackets that are holding this sway bar in place that happen to be bracketed to the motor mount bracket. So they gotta come off because I'm not taking the brace with me. Okay, next up is to remove the starter and swing it to one side. So I gotta disconnect the power to it, the ground, and then the bolts to disconnect it. And then after that, it's just a matter of loosening the motor mounts and put the hoist to it. Fingers crossed. I have to remove the catalytic converter to get to a bolt. It probably makes sense anyway. It's a huge appendage that comes off the exhaust manifold. Not a big deal, it's just there's 2 bolts on this side that require long extensions to get to from underneath the car. Not the end of the world, I think I can get it done. All right, I got the catalytic converter out and then loosen it up, get the starter out of here. So this connector on the starter is a major pain in the ass and I ended up just destroying it to get it off. I've confirmed that many people have had trouble with this freaking connector. At this point, I can just get the starter out of here and out of the way. So starter removal done. Now we just gotta remove the engine mounts. So this here is Torin Big Red Jack's leveler. So this little screw bolt here balances the leveler. And see how now it is starting to level out. So yeah, this goes on the hoist. So I'm gonna get this thing set up because we're that close. This may be overkill, I doubt it, but I'm gonna keep the transmission supported the whole time as I'm loosening the bolts on the gearbox as well as the engine. I'm gonna start by removing that first bracket along with the bolt and then move over to the other side. Okay. Come on, man. Almost out. There we go. Okay. All right. This was the problem. There's a low spot in the transmission that's getting caught up on the subframe, so it's a balancing act. Lift a little bit, pull, lift a little bit, pull, until it clears the subframe. So close, ladies and gentlemen. You see it swinging now. Cleared the hood, that's good. Still a little on the transmission.
Ratchet this in a little tighter?
Yeah. Alright, nice and snug.
Good? More?
No, it's good. Yeah. Here's what Olaf's little engine should be.
little bolts and stuff popped out of here. I don't even recognize that shiny little nut there.
Crazy. Can't believe I did it. Now I gotta do it again to get it back in there. But I'm gonna clean all this out. More on that later.
Oh, for Christ's sake, open up the damper, will you? Who let him turn it all the way down? Again! Oh, bastard! Flirt around, flash, I'm a flirt.
Honey? You okay in there? Honey?
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. You weren't supposed to see that. Hi. Well, welcome to Yogi's Garage. As you can see, I got my hands full here. I hope you enjoyed my two-part episode on me removing this 2.0 liter engine out of my car over there. If you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified when I drop another video. So what's next for this poor Olaf here? Well, as you can see, I've got to separate this transmission from the engine here. But after that, who knows? All I know is that I'm going to be tearing this engine down, trying to figure out what's wrong with it. It could take a week, a day, who knows? But once I'm done, I'll put it back in the car and I'll be sure to document the whole process. On behalf of my family to yours, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. Thanks for watching Yogi's Garage. We'll see you next time.